from Greece and other persons on behalf of the municipality of Saronikos and the municipality of Lavreotiki. 5 minutes for Mr. Petros Philippou.
Κύριε Πρόεδρε, αγαπητά μέλη της Επιτροπής Αναφορών.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the Petitions Committee of the EP. Good afternoon to you each and all. Now, we think that your invitation is of particular importance because the PETI Committee offers us and citizens and local authorities and regional authorities a venue to discuss issues involving renewable energy sources, which are very important. We thank you for this opportunity. We're all in favor of the green revolution, but at present, when it comes to developing renewals in our country, this is being based on an obsolete urban planning and territorial planning blueprint, one that doesn't involve local authorities in a way that is correct. At the end of the day, we're taken to court by companies who are building windmills and other infrastructure. So the local authorities at present have set up an association for sustainable and balanced renewables development, one that does respect the local authorities. Now, our position is not negotiable when it comes to the issuing of new licenses until a new territorial planning program has been adopted. This is something of the utmost importance to our minds. This has to be accomplished before any other additional licenses are granted. The views of local authorities and municipalities need to be taken into account. The state must respect our political priorities and not act flying in the face of those interests. They need to consult with local authorities. They should not decide territorial management basically off their own bat, particularly when it comes to wind energy infrastructure. This is something which was taken into account at the Congress, bringing together all the different local authorities of Greece. Decisions were taken there unanimously on this matter. Now, when it comes to the petition which has been put forward by Sarakonikos and Lavreotiki, well, we have argued that in Lavreotiki and indeed in the mountainous region that surrounds us, we have noted that over 50 windmills have been installed and licenses are being delivered in Greece. And these are things that are being built in areas that have protections in place, ones that have absolute bans on building, archaeological zones, areas that are being rewooded, reforested, ones that have suffered recent fires. We have delta regions, too, that are being affected. These are areas that are important for leisure activities. They need to be protected. Then we look at the Lavrione energy production plant. This is up and running. Keratea, Lavu, also. That goes back to the 70s. And that can produce 2.5% of energy of the needs of the country with a number of different high-power transmission lines. In our area, there are photovoltaic, well, I'd call them forests of panels. And then in the National Park of Elastic Union, we have windmill parks that also help promote an energy balance for the country, but of a very small amount. Now, since most of the population in our country is found in the Athens region, well, the green regions are few and far between. Those green areas need to be protected to maintain quality of life for millions of citizens. They are the lungs of the city. So that means this indeed is the most southern part of the Cape is another area which is critical. Local communities where we are basically up in arms about the current strategy. So the companies that are building these, well, they've already been the subject of legal proceedings. So those are the elements that you need to take into consideration on this matter. Thank you.
Evharisto. Thank you very much indeed. And now, time for the representative of the European Commission, Mr. Yanis Kontinioniotis. Παρακαλώ.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La Commission
Yes, thank you. Yes, well, the Commission does share the concerns which have been voiced by the co-petitioner, and the fact that the development of renewable energy, not just in Greece, but really throughout the European Union, has to be something which is properly monitored so that there are not excesses when it comes to specific projects. Now, renewable energy is something which is going to play a central part in our energy strategy in Europe. That's particularly true given the current situation. The European Union needs to increase its energy independence. And as you know, the Commission has recently adopted the Repower EU plan, which goes down that path. Now, that doesn't mean that this priority and the fact that the energy sector is so important means that European environmental legislation will not be applied. I won't say again what Mrs. Tabellini said just before when it comes to the role of the European Commission when it comes to individual plants and projects. But the fact is that the Commission cannot review each project individually. That is doesn't mean that we're sitting here with our on our hands either. So when it comes to Greece, our approach has been based on two things. First, to fully take into account the Repower EU plan, and basically to help Greece to change its current planning procedures when it comes to encompassing renewables. Now, that was what was covered by the petitioner in his presentation. The Commission has opened an infringement case against Greece. That's 214-4416. And Greece has already changed a number of the regional electrification plans there when it comes to using renewables. The Commission will continue to assist the Greek authorities and to bring pressure to bear so that the authorities there do rapidly change their national renewable energy plans, and thus that they give a better framework for the development of renewables throughout the country, thus a framework which would provide greater protection, better planning. Because the Habitat Directive does call for environmental impact assessments to be conducted upstream to look at what the species are, what the different that are at the site, and what the objectives of a project are. Now, a second area of action of the Commission involves the setting of conservation and preservation measures for all areas which have been determined as those worthy of special habitat protection measures. Such efforts will better allow us to assess projects and its impact on a Natura 2000 site, for example, but also to make better distinction between those projects which endanger Natura 2000 vis-a-vis those that don't endanger Natura 2000 plants that could be then rejected or called for revision. Let me give you an example of these situations. There's a Natura 2000 zone, which has been identified as one that's habitat for a type of falcon. So it's difficult to establish exactly what a windmill impact would be on that unless we have all the elements at our disposal. First of all, how many of the birds are in the area, where they reproduce, where they hunt, what hours of the day they are active. So without this information, I mean, it would be, it would be much easier to if you have the information to say, well, if you move the windmills, the turbines some, or if you turn off their operations during certain hours of the day, that can be a mitigation measure. Unfortunately, Greece has not yet implemented the recommended measures. Infringement procedures are ongoing. The European Court of Justice, indeed, back in January of 2020, condemned the Greek authorities in this matter. So Greece needs to rapidly adopt the proper protection and implementation measures for these areas. If they don't, then the Commission will turn again to the courts and ask for fines to be assessed. But that's not the goal, of course, of the Commission. We don't want to go to the courts again. No, our goal is to have technical meetings with the Greek authorities so that the Greek authorities will be in a position to implement proper measures which were specifically tailored to the needs of specific zones. That's what we're calling for at this point in time. Thank you.
Evharisto, thank you very much indeed. And now time for our time. Signora Diputada Maestre Martín de Almagro.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I can be very brief indeed. I think that the Commission has done a very good job of explaining the matter. Things are pretty straightforward here. I think it's true that we've got to be consistent. We want to have renewables. We've got to make sure that we also make sure that environmental legislation is respected in that process. Now, the Commission has said that there has been an infringement, non-compliance. So non-compliance then leads to a determination of an infringement leveled at the Greek government. So I think that here we just must call upon the Commission to continue to do its job here and to be the guardian of the treaties. And make sure that European directives are complied with and that the Greek government comply indeed and in fact in its actions. This is clearly a case where there is non-compliance of environmental legislation and everything that ties in with the protection and preservation of the cultural heritage of the European Union. So let's keep this case open. That would be our request as things proceed. I think it's also opportune for the Commission at this point in time to turn to the Greek government and ask for more information on these specific areas. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Deputy Kanev.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to the petitioner. So first of all, I have to express the position of our rapporteur, Alexander Bernhuber, on whose behalf I'm speaking, due to the fact that the Commission has a clear statement that the mentioned project is no infringement in connection to the Habitats Directive, and so Natura 2000 rules don't apply. He would prefer to have the petition closed. In only one sentence, I will express my opinion that although this is a very reasonable argument, we might also keep it open because the petitioners is raising extremely important and strategic issue of the balance between local and national authority when it comes to the rapid uptake of green energy, wind energy in this case. Since we have this highest priority for developing renewables, including wind farms, it becomes very important to accommodate public opinions and to pay really tribute to the balance of powers when it comes to this priority investments. So I think especially from the point of view, balance between local authorities and national authorities in this case, we'd better elaborate a bit more on this petition and keep it open.
Благодаря. And now, Sra. Diputada Miranda Paz. Take a floor, please.
Paz. Acaba de Z.
Paz. Well, thank you very much, Chair. Well, we also think that this is a file to be kept open because really what underlies this, trying to reconcile renewables and with public participation, well, quite often it's that no effort's being made to try and find middle ground between all the different objectives here. And we've had all kinds of petitions on the environment here. We've had them come in again and again. Quite a few from Galicia, then other ones from Greece and Italy and France. So you can see there's an underlying fundamental problem here. That is public participation in all of this. And from what we're learning from the Greeks, well, I mean, I think I could be hearing some of the local authorities from my own government, from my own country. They're complaining about the fact they haven't been involved when it came to developing wind industry in their areas. We see this happening all over Europe. I mean, it's based upon energy needs, but you still need to have local involvement. And in these local areas, that's where the greatest impact is to be felt. So if you look at it for farming, for tourism, for fishing, you've got the same problem there in terms of participation. It really cross-cuts. So let's keep this open. Indeed, let's really take a look at this process. We can start with this point, this particular occurring in Greece, but there's a fundamental problem. We see that the όρος project is really causing problems in many European states as we speak.
Ναι, ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ κύριε Πρόεδρε, παρόλο που δεν...
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. We didn't benefit from interpretation, unfortunately, but we were able to listen to what was said in the parts that were in English, so we do thank you very much for, we would argue that you keep this open. There's still a lot in play. The way that renewables are being used and developed in my country worries me. I think that local authorities and regional authorities in our country need to have their say. And then we've got the panels, solar panels, the windmills. It's being really developed willy-nilly, approvals in months. And the neighbors are up in arms. We've had protests. We've had measures brought before, cases brought before the courts. And we don't really want to be opposed to this, but what we would say is that the Greek government does not have a proper plan here. There's not been a proper definition of areas where windmills should be built. There's a great deal of pressure, we understand that, on the Greek government, and the government has to follow European directives. We know there's a lot of wheeling and dealing in Greece as well. All of that is very concerning. It hasn't, and these types of things have an impact on the tourism and on the flora and fauna. It's all very concerning. So positive measures are being taken for the environment. Okay, great. But here we see that in actual fact, it's not going down that path. That's why we would ask that you keep this petition open so that additional facts can be brought to your attention as things transpire. Thank you again.
Evharisto, thank you very much indeed. I think unanimously decision our committee petition is open, but also we should ask European Commission to send update information. Okay, and finally, I don't know if it's good news or bad news, but it's the last petition today. Petition